out whole segments of economies, not to mention the human dramatic damage that it would cause. And we know, for work that we certainly have done at the IMF, that the poorest countries will be the most disproportionately affected by climate change. And we know also, because it's everybody's business, that advanced economies will not be immune. Some industries we know will be more affected than others, and some industries will be more instrumental in addressing those issues than others. You would not suspect that, but even central banks and banks have to actually take account of climate change and measure its impact. Insurance companies do too. Kristalina, at the World Bank, you spend a lot of time, effort, and money on those issues of climate change. Can you address some of those concerns and think about policies?
Well, first, let me say that climate change is not only happening, it is happening faster than we thought it would. And Stanford University did us a favor to calculate what does it mean if temperatures were to continue to go up, up, up. So they go up to 2.5 degrees. It shaves 15% of the global GDP. It goes up to 3 degrees, we lose 25% of global GDP. And of course, the cost in terms of suffering is unmeasurable. So what we can do, what we do, and what we can do more of. First, the very obvious, eliminate harmful subsidies. We have done some. We shrunk them by half for nearly 600 billion to now under 300 billion. But we still have $300 billion to go. And I want to praise countries like Egypt that have done the right thing. They had energy subsidies at 7% of GDP. Just imagine, this is more than Egypt spent on education, health, and social protection combined. They dropped them to 3%. Egypt has more money to invest in its own people. But also by doing so, the energy sector became attractive for private investments, and they went into renewables massively, some 12 to 14 billion. So that is happening. It has to happen faster. And of course, when we do that, we have to be mindful of the impact on poor people. When that is done in that fashion, and I go back to Egypt, we helped Egypt to have social protection policy that reduced the negative impact of energy subsidies removal on poor people. We have to move also in agriculture, where today most of the agricultural subsidies contribute actually to climate change and do not help the energy sector to be part of the new low-carbon economy. Secondly, it is absolutely paramount that we recognize a shift to the new climate economy is great for the economies themselves. We had a commission on the new climate economy. I was very honored to serve on that commission. We came up with a very attractive pathway. We would see $26 billion created in renewable energy, new mobility, low-carbon mobility, low-carbon buildings, and 65 million more jobs as a result. So those who tell you, oh, going to low-carbon is really scary and bad for the economy, don't buy it. And then comes the third part of the policy action that, in my heart, I believe is actually, from the perspective of fairness, most important. Help countries and communities that have done very little to contribute to climate change, but are already living with its consequences, adapt. and I'm thinking here of Niger, Chad, or small island states, or coastal areas in West Africa. It is morally right, but it is also absolutely essential for the sustainability of our world that we lift up action on adaptation. And here is what we have done at the bank. We have done two things. One, we have lifted up our commitment to climate action. We would do $200 billion as World Bank Group as investments to say to people, when we talk climate, we put our money where our mouth is. And we will place investment in mitigation, things like battery storage, wind, energy, low carbon mobility, rail. We would put this on equal footing with investment in adaptation, agriculture that is climate resilient, coastal areas that have the mangroves and the coral reefs being protection against surge and hurricanes, investing in resilient cities. It can be done. It can be done. And I want to ask the audience, how many of you believe it can be done and it must be done? Raise your hands. Let me test you.
Good.
I can just hand over the moderation of this panel. That's okay. Okay, we saw lots of hands. Thank you very much, Kristalina. You know, we have heard in the last few days, particularly from the private sector, leaders say, it's also good business for me. So does the World Bank actually cooperate with the private sector to leverage your position in order to encourage investment in those segments?
I'm so glad you're saying it. I was watching over there, and I'm saying, I'm going too long, I need to stop. And I
didn't shut you off. That's
no,
okay.
You didn't. I shut myself watching the clock. It is absolutely fabulous that many business leaders are stepping up. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the business leaders, CEOs that are committed to climate action. Very impressive group. And what they do it for their bottom line, they do it also for their reputation. Many companies have recognized that climate action is actually fabulous for their profitability. Yep. And how we can help them from the policy side by relentlessly pursuing price for carbon. When price for carbon is introduced, it becomes much more attractive for businesses to act. We have now some 70 jurisdictions, countries, and regions that have embraced carbon price. By doing so, they give a wind in the sail of business leaders that are going to transform how our economy works.
Yeah, because the less carbon tax they pay, actually, the more they can spend in innovation. We'll go to innovation in a little while. Thank you so much. So public-private partnership is doable. Large institutions like yours and investors, the investor arm ICL of the World Bank is doing a lot of that, investing and committing directly to those initiatives fueled by the research and the technical assistance that you do. Yep.
Could I just say one more thing very quickly? When you think about climate, my advice to you is get the picture of your children, your grandchildren in front of you. I guarantee you it would change your perspective.
Yeah.
I did that and it works.
So we're going to move swiftly from climate change into another big challenge that cannot be addressed that can be addressed in short order, but that clearly where we see the impact much later on, and that's demographics. And my privilege is to have a high-ranking representative of an aging society, and that's a privilege that we all have. Thank you very much. Aging. But Japan is clearly one